Adriana Smith is a mother who is being kept on life support as the baby in her womb grows. You are hearing a lot of mis and disinformation about this story. We are going to debunk those myths today and give you the pro-life perspective. We will also be analyzing the Colorado terror attack, as well as some troubling news coming out of the Trump administration about the treatment of conservative Christians. Also, tomorrow, be on the lookout for an explosive investigation that we have been working on for many weeks about an organization called the Innocence Project. That episode will be out tomorrow. Make sure that you stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Kexi. They are incredible cookies with amazing ingredients. They taste so good. It would be an awesome Father's Day gift. Go to Kexi.com, Kaksi.com. Use code Allie15 for 15% off. That's Kexi.com, code Allie15. Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone is having a wonderful week so far. We had a lot of theology in yesterday's episode, so I encourage you to go back and watch that, especially as we enter what some people call Pride Month, but what I call Noahic Covenant Month. If you need to be reminded of the truth of biblical marriage and what it actually means and why it matters to our Christian theology and to our worldview, and yes, even to our politics, then please go back and watch or listen to yesterday's episode. Today, we will be getting into news stories. A lot of you have been asking me to comment on the story of the Georgia mom who is on life support, who is pregnant. And so we will be debunking a lot of the narratives that you have seen and giving my best attempt at pro-life, pro-imago day analysis of that situation. But first, we need to talk about the Colorado terror attack that tragically happened over the weekend on Sunday, June 1st in Boulder, Colorado. Definitely a progressive stronghold there. Mohammed Sabri Solomon, a 45-year-old Egyptian national, committed a violent attack on a pro-Israel group advocating for the release of Israeli hostages. The FBI is investigating the incident as a targeted terror attack. Those are the exact words that the FBI used. Solomon, who was illegally in the United States after overstaying his visa, set 8 people on fire, with 12 total injured. This seems to be a pattern with the people who are pro-Hamas and anti-Israel. No matter what side of the issue that you're on, I think that we can all agree that any kind of Middle Eastern conflict has many layers and is very complex. And I have given my general position on Israel versus Palestine many times, and have talked about this with guests who are really experts on this many times. But also we realize as Christians that we want no innocent people to die. We care about the children. We care about the lives lost anywhere, no matter if it's in Israel or if it's in Gaza. But a pattern that you see over and over again is that those that are pro-Hamas and anti-Israel in the United States seem to have a greater tendency towards extremism and violence. I just haven't seen this kind of radicalism and terrorism and violence coming from the Jewish people here in the United States, or from the most ardent pro-Israel Zionists in the United States. There have been lots of demonstrations, lots of protests by the pro-Palestinian, free Palestine people here in the United States, and I have yet to see any Jewish instigated terrorism against those people. But I have seen over and over again, for example, Jewish students on their campus being run into the library where they have to take refuge from the radical pro-Palestine demonstrators there. And so there just seems to be a pattern. Certainly this pattern is very prevalent within progressivism in general, because when politics is your God, or when anything other than the God of Scripture is your God, you are going to be lost and your moral compass is going to be off and you are more easily radicalized in an extremely violent way. And so that is surely what happened here. And plus, Islam in general is just like, it's a violent religion. That doesn't mean that everyone who is Muslim is going to commit violence, but there is a reason why almost every single terrorist regime in the world is Islamic. That's not like, oh, that's just a coincidence. I don't know how that happened. It is the ideology that drives them. It is inherently violent. So again, lots of patterns here. Lots of commonalities that we should just be able to call out no matter what you think about the specific Israel-Gaza conflict going on right now. So Solomon allegedly used a makeshift flamethrower made from a garden sprayer filled with gasoline and threw Molotov cocktails while shouting, "Free Palestine" and "In Zionist." Why is it that with progressives, freedom and liberation always means terrible violence? This was during this pro-Israel event on Pearl Street in Boulder. And here the guy is after the attack, that one.
And for us,
well, we can't do it when he's got Molotov cocktails in
if you are fighting, you have to...
That's what he's got right here is Molotov cocktails.
Okay. So I know he might look just like your standard white guy from here, but he's not. He might have kind of like light skin, but he's not. As I said, he's an Egyptian national. He apparently is Muslim. He is fighting on behalf of the Islamic cause. And we know that radical Muslims around the world, it's not just that they believe that Palestine is their land. It's not that they believe that there is an apartheid going on. It's not that they believe that the Palestinians are being oppressed by Israel. If they really cared about Muslim oppression, then they would stop oppressing Muslims. Muslims are most oppressed by other Muslims and Muslims that are in charge, Muslim authorities, much more than they are oppressed by Israel or any Jew. But Muslim ideology, again, it has within it, intertwined within it, a hatred for the Jewish people, also a hatred for Christians. But really, there seems to be a more a passionate hatred toward the Jews in much of Muslim ideology. And so that is part of what's going on here. Court documents show that he told the FBI after his arrest that he had been planning the attack for a year. Like, just, I guess, was missed. The FBI didn't see him, didn't know. As for his motive, he said he wanted to kill all Zionist people and wish they were all dead. He also said that he would do it again. Let's talk about the victims because their lives really matter. 8 victims aged 52 to 88 were hospitalized for burns, with 1 in critical condition. 4 victims received minor injuries. They endured minor injuries. No deaths were reported as of this morning, Tuesday, June 3rd. 1 victim was an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor, according to Rabbi Israel Wilhelm, the Chabad director at the University of Colorado Boulder. Her name has not yet been identified. And obviously, it's tragic when any person is victimized. But when you're talking about someone who survived the Holocaust, who saw her relatives survive the Holocaust, still this many decades later, enduring that kind of violent Jew hate, it's really sad. The pro-Israel group called Run for Their Lives is a grassroots organization which is holding a weekly gathering to call for the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Like, let us not forget how this conflict started. That Hamas decided that they were going to paraglide into a music festival and kill and torment and kidnap and rape innocent Israelis. Okay, that's how this started. And then they took hostages, including babies, over to their side and starved and killed them. Okay, and so when we're talking about what Israel has done and the violence they have inflicted, I say this as someone who wants no child to die, who wants no baby to die, no innocent person to die. But when we look at what Israel is doing, they are doing this in response to what happened on October 7th, all right? Let us not forget that. Let us not forget that there are still hostages being held by Hamas, and the majority of the Palestinians actually support Hamas. I think it's also important to remember that. All right, we've got more details on the story, but let me pause and tell you about our first sponsor, and that is 7 Weeks Coffee. I had my 7 Weeks Coffee this morning. It's got me ready to go to seize the day. 7 Weeks Coffee is America's pro-life coffee company. It is on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. Every sale of 7 Weeks Coffee donates, they take 10% of every sale and they donate it to pregnancy centers across the country. Guys, they've almost raised $1 million since the inception of this company. Over $900,000 because you are allowing your coffee to serve a higher purpose has been donated to these pro-life organizations across the country. That has saved thousands of baby lives as these moms have been able to get sonograms. They've been able to gain the support, the resources that they need to make life-affirming decisions. You can also subscribe to their Heartbeat Club, and that'll give you a discount on their coffee. Plus, when you use my code Allie at checkout, you save an extra 10%. Go to 7weekscoffee.com. Use code Allie for that discount. That's 7weekscoffee.com. Solomon faces a federal hate crime charge, 16 state counts of attempted first-degree murder, additional charges for using incendiary devices with potential penalties of life in prison. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino described the attack as, quote, ideologically motivated violence with ongoing investigations to confirm motives and connections. Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfarn was hesitant at first to call the event a terrorist attack. At first, they were saying, oh, we don't know the motive behind it. That's what they always do. The FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack? And this was a journalist asking him a question at a press conference, and he said, we're not going to call it a terrorist attack at this point. Again, it's too early to speculate motive. I mean, the guy literally said, I hate Zionists and I wish they were dead. And by the way, I'll also do this again. And the police are like, no idea. No idea. Maybe he was just having a bad day. Redfarn also said, I cannot confirm right now that this was targeted at a specific group of people. Okay. Redfarn was promoted to the position of Boulder Police Chief in September 2024 after serving as Deputy Chief since 2021, pledging to, quote, make policing equitable and effective in its core mission. And the translation we learned in 2020 means that you are going to arrest fewer immigrants, fewer Hispanic people, fewer Black people, fewer people who call themselves transgender, etc. Those that you might call a progressive, might call oppressed or marginalized, and try to arrest more white people. That's what equitable means, being soft on crime. Redfarn is also openly gay and married to a man. The department unveiled a pride badge in June of 2024 because that's what's important when you are enforcing the law. And the reason why that's relevant is because it is possible that this person is just a diversity hire. Obviously, this police department is ideologically motivated. It doesn't surprise me that this person would want to say that this illegal alien, that this person who is pro-free Palestine, that, oh, we just don't know the motive. This is probably just a one-off. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino explained on X why the FBI immediately said that they were investigating the attack as terrorism before the local police did. When the evidence passed to our FBI leadership team from an active crime scene includes clearly ideologically motivated statements, video, multiple witness accounts, we will investigate those incidents as targeted acts of terror. If the investigation turns a different direction, despite the evidence, we can make adjustments. We are not the Federal Bureau of Word Games. Solomon was granted work authorization in the United States in March 2023 by the Biden administration, despite his expired visa status. So again, being soft on crime, being soft on immigration has consequences. Policy has consequences. Whom we elect has consequences. When you elect people that are soft on crime, who are pro-open borders, who think that it's actually positive for our country to allow people to stay here who should never be here in the first place, who are radical Islamists and who are here illegally, then you will pay the consequences of that. Biden will never pay the consequences of that. Those who worked for him, who are part of the elite class and who live in gated communities and who pay extra not to have to live next to riffraff, they will never pay the consequences of that. But regular working people will have to pay the consequences of the bad and irresponsible virtue signaling policy decisions that politicians make. Policy matters because politics matter. No, politics matter because policy matters because people matter. Politics affects policy, policy affects people, and people matter. Illegal aliens have to go. They all have to go back. It doesn't matter if they are now some kind of radical extremist like this. It doesn't matter if they've committed a violent crime. They have no right to be here. And if we are a country, then we have to have borders. If we don't have borders, then we're not a country. Then you are not a citizen. Then no one has rights that can be afforded, especially to citizens. And there's no right of our government or law enforcement to be able to protect us, and no responsibility either. They all have to go back. That is a righteous decision. That is a good decision. If you're confused about that, please just read my immigration chapter in Toxic Empathy. We go through all of the stories, the competing data, the competing anecdotes. That is probably the chapter that people need to read the most right now, because you've got a lot of people who are using that toxic empathy to emotionally manipulate you into believing that the biblical position is to believe that a country shouldn't have borders. God is a God of order. He places us in a garden, not in a jungle. He does not want chaos for people because we flourish when order exists. Stephen Miller seems to understand this a lot, especially when it comes to immigration. He says a terror attack was committed in Boulder, Colorado by an illegal alien. He was granted a tourist visa by the Biden administration, and then he illegally overstayed that visa. In response, the Biden administration gave him a work permit. Suicidal migration must be fully reversed. He's absolutely right. Suicidal migration is the result of toxic empathy. Scott Jennings, who is kind of like the Republican guy on CNN, said, "What more do we need to see before we acknowledge this Free Palestine movement is nothing more than a domestic terror organization? We are in a fight for the future of Western civilization, and we need to come to grips with it, and fast." Jake Tapper on CNN, he kind of started rambling about like right-wing anti-Semitism in response to the Boulder, Colorado terror attack, which had nothing to do with right-wing anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism obviously is a big problem on the left, he said. It's also a big problem on the right. I want to make clear, I'm not doing whataboutism, but it's actually like exactly what you are doing. Here's that too.
It is also a problem on the right. I mean, in addition to the Tree of Life synagogue killing in Pittsburgh, which is obviously homicidal, there's been reporting recently that the Pentagon press secretary, Kingsley Wilson, has a history of social media posts pushing anti-Semitic tropes, extremist theories. The problem right now that we're seeing in terms of violence is on the left. And I want to make it clear, I'm not whataboutism. I'm not doing whataboutism.
Okay. But like, that's what you did. You might not have said the words, "what about?" but you're a smart guy, Jake Tapper. That's exactly what you were doing right there. MSNBC contributor Tom Winters said, "There's an individual who is taken into custody. He's a white male." Okay, SOT 3.
There's an individual that's taken into custody. He's a white male. Whether or not that's the person that police ultimately arrested and will ultimately charge in this crime, a bit of a question at this time, but that's just what we've seen so far.
Okay, to be fair, the guy did look like a white male. I will say that. Like, he did look like that, but I would be surprised if MSNBC ever corrected their reporting and said that he's an illegal alien. And you will see people say, well, it's irrelevant because people who are citizens commit these kind of crimes all the time. It's not irrelevant because every crime that is committed by an illegal alien is preventable, unlike crimes that are committed by citizens. Okay, and people who say, well, citizens actually commit more crimes than illegal aliens. You don't know that. I don't know that. No one knows that. If they are by definition undocumented, then there's really no way to know how many of them are committing crimes. And by the way, every single one of them is a criminal because it is a crime to cross the border illegally. There was this awful story out of Texas where at Lake Travis, this young woman who was about to enter the Air Force, she was run over while she was kayaking by an illegal alien from Venezuela. Two illegal aliens who were on a sea-doo ran into her, saw that they ran into her. She died, and they sped away. And thankfully, they were arrested. They're going to be deported and all of that. But that woman would be alive if we had had administrations that were enforcing immigration policy and were protecting our border. Just because we have criminals, we have murderers that are citizens, doesn't mean we need to add to the crimes committed by citizens by importing a bunch of new people that will also commit crimes. Every crime that is committed by an illegal alien is preventable. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people on TikTok who are celebrating this. We don't know who these people are. There's always going to be crazy people on either side of an issue or either side of the political aisle who are anonymous online saying crazy things. But I think it's worth noting that you do see people saying not all heroes wear capes. And the survivor of the Holocaust, this person is referencing, thought he escaped after all of these years. Congratulations, someone said. We failed to wipe them out. Is Saul's time for attacking us coming from the sea? What a hero, someone says. Someone says hero with the Palestinian flag. Give this man a Nobel Prize. And so it's just really unfortunate that the people who say that they are anti-oppression, they're anti-violence, they just care so much about the children in Gaza. It's really not about that for a lot of people. I'm not saying everyone, but for a lot of people on that side, they really just don't like Jews and they really just don't like Israel. And we just need to understand that. We need to be clear about that. All right. We've got to get into our other stories, but let me pause and tell you about Share the Arrows, brought to you by our friends at Carly Jean Los Angeles. I know a lot of you missed out last year and you got FOMO. Don't have FOMO. We've got CGLA making our merch again this year. It is even better than last year's, and last year's was amazing. Chief Relatable can tell you, I wear my Share the Arrows t-shirts every day because they're so cute and so comfortable. This year's even better. And our speaker lineup is just stacked. You are not going to find a Christian women's conference that is better and more hard-hitting than this one. We've got Elisa Childers. We've got Ginger Duggar-Vuolo. We've got Abby Halberstadt, Hillary Morgan Ferrer, Shauna Holman, and Taylor Dukes, Katie Faust, and Grammy Award-winning artist Francesca Battistelli. And of course, yours truly will be speaking as well. It's in Dallas, Texas. ShareTheArrows.com. Get your tickets today. We've got about 4 months, y'all. 4 months. I am so excited. Go to ShareTheArrows.com. Okay, this Georgia mom who is on life support. This story has been circulating for several weeks. I have talked about it a little bit on Instagram, but I'm glad that I waited to fully talk about it on the show because there are so many different layers and details to this story that have been revealed. And I wanted to make sure that I got it right. This is the story of the woman who is on life support and who has a baby that is growing inside her womb. And because of Georgia law, the doctors cannot take her off of life support, and they are actually going to deliver this child. And of course, you've got pro-choicers, pro-abortion advocates saying this is so awful. This is using this woman as a lifeless incubator, and they should have just, let her off life support, let the baby die. You've even got some of her family members, it seems, saying, we should have a choice. And you've got a lot of pro-life and pro-choicers, pro-abortionists going back and forth. But you've got some people on the pro-life side saying, okay, this is not as clear-cut as some pro-lifers are making it out to be. And I have said, of course, we should give this baby a chance at life. And I actually thought that this whole situation was being made possible by Georgia pro-life law, anti-abortion law. I was wrong about that. It actually has nothing to do with the Georgia abortion law. And that's exactly what the left wants you to think, what pro-abortionists want you to think, that this is because of some draconian, archaic pro-life law in Georgia and that this has to do with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. No, that's not what this is about at all. This is actually because of a law that was passed a while ago that was supported by a lot of progressives at the time. So let's get into it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll back up and give you the details of this story. Adriana Smith is a 30-year-old nurse and mother from Atlanta, Georgia. She was declared brain dead on February 19th, 2025. After suffering severe blood clots to her brain. It's a tragic situation, which caused irreversible neurological damage. At the time, Smith was approximately 9 weeks pregnant with her second child. Emory University Hospital, where Smith is being treated, has decided to maintain her life, to preserve her life, to keep her on life support, to allow the baby to develop until it reaches viability. He reaches viability. I'm pretty sure it's a baby boy, projected to be around 32 weeks of gestation based on medical assessments, a C-section. Based on medical assessments. A C-section is scheduled for August of 2025. Smith's family, including her mother, April, claims that they were informed by doctors that Georgia's abortion law required maintaining life support, stripping them of medical decision-making rights, and they described the situation as emotionally torturous and financially burdensome. In an interview with 11 Alive, published May 19th, Newkirk said that they had named this new baby boy Chance and that he is doing better than the last time I met with the doctors. He has his toes, arms, limbs, everything is forming. We're just hoping he makes it. So there's been some conflicting stories. On the one hand, we hear that Adriana's mom, April, has told reporters, I'm angry that we didn't get a choice. We want to be able to have a choice whether or not we can end this pregnancy and take her off life support. But at the same time, we also see these reports of April saying, no, like we want our baby boy to be able to live. I want my grandchild to be okay. And it could be that she has expressed both of these sentiments. Newkirk, April, did express frustration about not having a say, but saying we didn't have a choice or say about it. We want the baby. That's a part of my daughter, but the decision should have been left to us, not the state. The family started a GoFundMe and they've raised a lot of money. Adriana also has a 7-year-old son and other family that is very sad, understandably, and broken over this situation. Right now, the baby is about 24 weeks gestation, according to doctors, has shown signs of potential health complications, including fluid accumulation on the brain. Of course, it makes sense because a baby's health does correspond to the health of his mother. Women aren't just incubators, and this is obviously going to present potential complications for this child. Adriana's family is claiming that Emory Healthcare, the hospital, is maintaining life support due to Georgia's abortion law, which is known as the Life Act, that prohibits abortions after a fetal heartbeat is detected, typically around 6 weeks gestation, with limited exceptions. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr's office released a statement on May 19th clarifying that the hospital is not required by this pro-life law, by the Life Law, to maintain life support for a brain-dead patient to keep her child alive. Removing life support is not an action with the purpose of terminating a pregnancy. And remember, when we were talking about all of the propaganda about the Dobbs decision, especially before the last election, we went through the state legislation that prevents abortions, and we looked at the fact that these laws very specifically define what counts as an illegal abortion. It's not removing an ectopic pregnancy. It is not a D&C after a woman miscarries her baby. It is the purposeful ending of a child's life. And so the Georgia Attorney General is saying, no, this is not prohibited. To take her off life support is not prohibited under our pro-life law. That is not the law that's at play here. And thankfully, our friends at Live Action have fact-checked this and have told us what is actually in play here. So the title of this article's fact check is a pro-life law forcing a brain-dead pregnant woman to stay on life support. So we'll go through that in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about Good Ranchers. Y'all, this is a great Father's Day present for the relatable in your life, whether it's your dad or your husband. They want all American meat from Good Ranchers. Chief Relatable and I had their fillets the other night. so good. I mean, just as good as any like fancy steakhouse steak that I've had. All we do is put salt and pepper on it for seasoning. It is so good. And I love that we're supporting American farms and ranches. We eat their better than organic chicken a lot, multiple nights a week, because that is the protein that our kids will eat. We love their bacon. We love their seafood. We rely on it almost every night in the Stuckey home. If you use my code Allie, you get $40 off your order. Plus, when you subscribe, they will add on a bag of meat to your subscription for the life of your subscription. Go to goodranchers.com, use promo code Allie at checkout. That's goodranchers.com, code Allie. So this is according to Life Action. Georgia's Life Act defines abortion as, quote, the act of using, prescribing, or administering any instrument, substance, device, or other means with the purpose to terminate a pregnancy with knowledge the termination will, with reasonable likelihood, cause the death of an unborn child. So that very clear and specific definition is right there for the doctors at the hospital, for anyone in Georgia, for any activist in the world to read on their own. So anyone who says it's the fault of the pro-life law that these doctors are allowing women to die or allowing women to stay on life support to keep their child alive, it's not the law's fault. It might be the lawyer's fault. It might be the hospital administration's fault. It might be the doctor's fault. It might be you, activist's fault, but it is not actually the law's fault. If you have a specific suggestion for what should be added to the law, I think you can make that suggestion. I've seen many pro-lifers doing that because we want clarity. We don't want women to die. We know that the life of the mother is just as important as the life of the child. There's only one side that wants a person to die in this whole thing, and it's the pro-abortion side. Removing Smith, this woman from life support, says Live Action, does not fit the Life Act's definition of abortion, an act done with the purpose of terminating a woman's pregnancy to cause the preborn child's death. However, there is a law that does apply, Georgia's law regarding life support, the Georgia Advanced Directive for Healthcare Act, that has been in effect since 2007. 15 years prior to Georgia's Life Act. That is what is more likely at play here. So Georgia Code 31329 from 2007 states that doctors can't withdraw life support from pregnant patients unless both, one, the fetus is not viable, and two, the patient had an advance directive explicitly stating she wanted withdrawal of life-sustaining measures. So here's what it says. Prior to effecting a withholding or withdrawal of life-sustaining measures or the withholding or withdrawal of the provision of nourishment or hydration from a declarant pursuant to the declarant's directions in an advance directive for health care, the attending physician. Okay, so this is a lot of legal and medical language. I basically already summarized that. In this case, says Live Action, when Smith was first put on life support, her baby was not old enough to have been able to survive a premature birth. But this baby is now 21 weeks, and babies born at this gestational age have survived in some cases with medical intervention. His chances of survival will increase to 95% if he is allowed to remain in the womb until 32 weeks. My question is, when this law that, again, was enacted in 2007 with even support of Georgia Democrats at the time, when it says if the fetus is not viable, then you can withdraw life-sustaining support from this woman, from this patient. What exactly does viability mean? Because typically in the medical world, viability means about 24 weeks gestation. Even though there are babies who are born and survive before that, even 21 weeks, I think the youngest is 19 weeks. Typically, it's 24 weeks gestation is the gestational age of viability that a lot of doctors estimate. And so if that is the case, then I'm not really sure why these doctors felt that they had to keep her on life support when she was only 9 weeks pregnant. Does viability at that point mean that the baby doesn't have any known fatal anomalies? I'm just not totally sure what law is being referenced, what legal specifications are being referenced by these doctors when they say that she has to be kept alive. Also, maybe she had some directive that we don't know about. But here is how NPR and other left-wing media outlets are portraying this. This is probably how you've seen it on Instagram. NPR. A brain-dead woman's pregnancy raises questions about Georgia's abortion law. The Guardian. Fetus of brain-dead Georgia woman kept alive due to abortion ban is growing, says family. Okay. USA Today. A brain-dead pregnant Georgia woman is a horror story. It's Republicans' fault. Fox 5 Atlanta. Lawmakers clash over care of pregnant brain-dead Georgia woman. And then they go on to, again, blame the pro-life law. X-users are outraged. We've got someone who says Adriana Smith is brain dead. Her family can't say goodbye because the state demands her corpse remain alive for a fetus. By the way, there are a lot of medical questions and a lot of debate in the medical community about brain dead. And what that actually means, is that even a medically accurate term? You've got other pro-aborts saying Georgia's keeping a brain-dead woman alive without giving her family say-so because she's pregnant, and on and on. You've probably seen a lot of people say that this is like the Handmaid's Tale, that she's just being used as some kind of objectified incubator. And in a way, like, her womb is incubating this child. She is incubating this growing baby. But this baby is a human being. This baby is alive. This baby is made in the image of God. And while we absolutely mourn this situation, we want this woman to be alive. We are also thankful for the technology that allows this baby not to die. Now, not everyone on the pro-life side sees it that way, and I would never question the sincerity of the pro-life stance of some of the people who disagree with me on the ethics of this, like Dr. Abby Johnson, whom we've had on before. She says this. She says, I know I'm the odd man out in this Georgia situation where a woman is being essentially used as an incubator to keep a child alive. She was pronounced brain dead when her unborn child was 9 weeks along. She is being kept artificially alive for now over 11 weeks in order to continue the pregnancy. She says, I have a huge ethical problem with this. Death is natural. Keeping people alive by dehumanizing the mother into the form of an incubator is, in my opinion, unethical and dehumanizing. Women are made to have are not made to have babies even if they are dead. Obviously, she knows that women are made to have babies in general, but she's saying when they're dead. She said natural death is okay. Life and death are two places in medicine where we've just gone too far. We've got Charlie Kirk, who says a woman in Georgia is being kept on life support so that the child she is carrying can come to term and be born. I was asked about this case while in Britain. Apparently, people thousands of miles away are scandalized this is happening. I'll admit, Charlie says, that I'm completely baffled as to what the controversy is here. Literally, none of the arguments typically offered by pro-abortion advocates apply here. There's no threat to the mother's life or health. There is no threat to her personal autonomy. There is no threat to her of any kind. It is literally impossible to harm her. The only person facing any kind of potential harm is her unborn child. In one situation, two people definitely die. In the other situation, a child may be able to live. Saving lives is a good thing. This is only controversial if you actually view killing unborn children as a good thing and want more dead children for its own sake. So I am on that side. That is where I am. That if we have the opportunity to preserve one life, to save the innocent life of this child, then we should. That's not true in every situation where the mother who is pregnant dies. But in this case, there's an opportunity to save this child. And I would think that her family would want this, that the father of this child would want this, and that the mother would want this. Yes, I would absolutely sacrifice my body so that my child could live. And so that is my perspective on this situation. And so, again, a lot of propaganda from the pro-abortion side who simply just believes that unborn babies aren't real people and shouldn't have a right to life. So you shouldn't be listening to them at all about anything when it comes to this. All right, one more story to cover today, and this has to do with something going on reportedly in the Trump administration that is very troubling to me as a Christian. So we'll get into that in just a second. Let me pause and tell you about our last sponsor. That is Adele Natural Cosmetics. I use Adele every day. I use their essential cleanser every night to take off my makeup to make sure that my skin is fresh and clean and moisturized. I use their essential moisturizing spray. I love their Blue Lagoon line. When I'm not in the studio, studio. I use their moisturizing makeup. I genuinely love all of the products from Adele Natural Cosmetics, but I love the family, Arlene and her family who own Adele. She started Adele several years ago because of her own health journey. She was working hard to make sure that everything she put in and on her body was totally holistic, and that's why she started Adele. All of their products are completely natural. They don't have any synthetic fragrances, no endocrine disruptors. Everything is from God's medicine cabinet, and they hand make everything in Texas, so all U.S. made. It's just an awesome company, and you're supporting a pro-life, unapologetically Christian family when you purchase from Adele. So go to AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com. Use code Allie for 25% off your first time purchase. That's AdeleNaturalCosmetics.com, code Allie. This story is about a man named Floyd Brown, who started the outlet The Western Journal. He is a conservative commentator and author. He was recently, according to him, fired from his position of Vice President of Development at the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts. So this is a performing arts center that is partially funded by the taxpayer. It's in Washington, D.C. It features theater, dance, musical performances, as well as educational and outreach programs. He says that he was fired on May 28th after being contacted by CNN asking for his comments regarding past statements that he has made about the, quote, homosexual influence in the GOP. He says that he was fired by Rick Grinnell, the current interim president of the Kennedy Center, who is openly gay. He is in a homosexual, quote unquote, marriage. He also professes to be a Christian himself. So here are some of the things that he said about homosexuality in the past in a 2011 column on his website. He wrote, "No clearer words than William F. Buckley's express our own sentiment towards homosexuality. It is a sin, and the addict is to be pitied and accepted in Christian love, but not the pusher or promoter of the agenda." On a conservative talk radio program in 2023, Brown stated homosexuality is a punishment that comes upon a nation that has rejected God. They're debasing themselves and their humanity. Like, this is the position of many, many Christians, by the way. This is the position that the Bible articulates. Floyd says that he sent this to CNN after they requested the comments. He says, "It's an honor to work at the Kennedy Center. Comments rooted in my personal Christian views, which I have made in the past, have no impact upon my work here at the Kennedy Center, nor do they impinge on my interactions with colleagues who do incredible work for the patrons of the center. As a Christian, I am called to work with others of different beliefs and worldviews." He's honored to work for Rick Grinnell and Donald Trump, and that he is united with them in their mission to bring wholesome entertainment, showcasing the best of performing arts and music to America. He said, "It was truly not my intention to offend anyone with my comments. I've never intended to attack or demean any person in my statements. I've always shared the mission of Jesus, striving to love others unconditionally." Personally, I think this is too much to give to CNN in a statement. If I were talking to CNN, I don't think I would have talked that much. You got to be so careful. So then after he was fired, he says, "I was fired yesterday by Rick Grinnell from the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. 1 month ago, I was recruited to join the Kennedy Center as vice president. My firing came approximately 2 hours after CNN sent an email asking me to comment on my past writings about the homosexual influence in the GOP. He says, Floyd Brown says, "I asked for an explanation of my dismissal and I asked to speak to Rick Grinnell. Both of those requests have been ignored. The only explanation is the one given to me at the time of my firing. Floyd, you must recant your belief in traditional marriage and your past statements on the topic, or you will be fired. Needless to say, I refused to recant and was shown the door. My beliefs are much more common to biblical Christianity. My only conclusion is Rick Grinnell was intimidated by a CNN story, which hasn't been aired or published, so he preemptively fired me for my Christian beliefs on marriage." Okay, so I haven't seen any statement from Rick Grinnell about this. So we cannot confirm or deny whether this is true, but it does seem that CNN is taking credit for the firing of Floyd. They ran a story about Floyd's firing on Thursday, May 29th, calling him a, quote, far-right activist with a history of anti-gay comments. They did admit that they had reached out to him for comment regarding an investigation, but didn't say what the investigation was about. CNN did cast doubt on a part of Floyd's post, saying that a source familiar with the Kennedy Center confirmed to CNN that Brown is no longer working there, and said that Grinnell had not met with Brown, did not know him, and was not involved in his hiring. Despite Floyd's claims that he had met Grinnell previously during his time as a political organizer in Arizona, and that Grinnell was involved in his firing. So it seems to me like this is Floyd's interpretation of what happened. I don't know for sure if his interpretation is correct, but Rick Grinnell was involved in the election of Dr. Oz and Kathy Bennett, and he shared, I don't know if but he shared videos that were completely doctored and decontextualized things that Kathy Bennett had said about BLM. Made it seem like she was saying things about BLM that were positive when actually she was saying the opposite. So I have seen what I think is very dishonest behavior from him. I don't know how involved he was in the hiring and firing of this person, but as a Christian conservative who shares these principles about the definition of biblical marriage with someone like Floyd Brown, this is a troubling report, and I hope that we find out what is actually true. And I just want to say, if you are a Christian who holds fast to the natural and biblical definition of marriage, and if you work for the Trump administration, do not allow this to intimidate you. Share the arrows and make sure that you are standing strong, because there are a lot of you in the Trump administration. There are a lot of you in the executive branch. There are a lot of you out there who voted for Donald Trump. And what you believe is not only right, but it also matters. So don't be intimidated by this. Go back, listen to yesterday's episode. You'll get a lot of encouragement. All right, before we close out, let me just remind you to sign up for Blaze TV. They've got this explosive documentary out that looks at what really happened in Minneapolis during the George Floyd riots, the dereliction of duty, the allowing of the overturning of law and order thanks to Governor Tim Walz and even some parts of law enforcement there. We've got police officers who are going on the record anonymously talking about the corruption that led to the violence and the loss of life in the wake of the George Floyd incident. Go to blazetv.com/Allie. You'll get $20 off your subscription when you do, and you'll get access to all Blaze TV subscriber exclusive content. Go to blazetv.com/Allie. All right, that's all we got time for today. We'll be back here tomorrow.